the lie everyone believes. What if the biggest lie about purpose is something most people have already accepted as truth? And what if that lie is quietly shaping the direction of millions of lives without them even realizing it? In today's world, conversations about purpose are everywhere. Social media influencers talk about it. Motivational speakers build entire careers around it. Books promise to help people discover it in a matter of weeks. And cultural messaging constantly repeats the same simple idea. Your purpose is something you create for yourself. At first, this message sounds empowering. People are told to follow their passions, chase their dreams, and build the life they want. The idea suggests that every individual has the power to design their own destiny. It encourages independence, creativity, and personal ambition. But what if this idea, this widely accepted belief about purpose, is not entirely true? What if it is actually one of the most dangerous lies modern culture has embraced? Messages often discussed by voices like Philip Anthony Mitchell challenge this assumption directly. Instead of teaching that purpose is something people invent, these messages suggest something radically different. Purpose is not created, it is discovered. This distinction may seem small at first, but it carries enormous consequences. If purpose is something you create, then it depends entirely on your desires. Your feelings become the ultimate authority. Whatever excites you, whatever motivates you, whatever brings you happiness, those things become your guiding compass. But desires are constantly changing. What excites someone at 20 may feel meaningless at 30. What motivates a person today may lose its power tomorrow. Human emotions are dynamic, influenced by circumstances, experiences, and shifting priorities. If purpose is built only on emotions, then it becomes unstable. Imagine constructing a house on sand. At first, the structure might appear solid. Everything seems secure and stable. But when the winds rise and the ground begins to shift, the foundation reveals its weakness. In the same way, a life built on constantly changing desires can feel strong for a time, but eventually, many people discover that something essential is missing. This realization often arrives quietly. A person might achieve the goals they once dreamed about. They might build a successful career, gain recognition, or reach milestones they once believed would bring fulfillment. Yet after those achievements arrive, an unexpected feeling sometimes follows. A question begins to surface. Is this really all there is? This question has echoed through human history. Philosophers, theologians, and thinkers from every culture have wrestled with the same mystery. Why do people sometimes feel empty even after achieving everything they once believed would satisfy them? The answer may lie in the misunderstanding of purpose itself. When purpose is treated as something we invent, life becomes centered primarily on the self. The focus shifts toward personal satisfaction, personal ambition, and personal recognition. But human beings were never designed to find lasting meaning through self-centered living alone. Deep fulfillment often emerges when individuals become part of something larger than themselves, something meaningful, something enduring, something that transcends personal preference. This is where the cultural narrative begins to break down. Modern society frequently tells people that the ultimate goal of life is self-fulfillment. The message is simple. Discover what makes you happy and pursue it relentlessly. But happiness is a temporary emotion. It rises and falls depending on circumstances. Purpose, however, must be something deeper than a temporary emotional state. Purpose must remain meaningful even when life becomes difficult, confusing, or painful. Because life will inevitably include hardship. Careers fail, relationships change, plans collapse, unexpected challenges appear without warning. In those moments, people discover whether their purpose is strong enough to carry them forward. If purpose was built only on comfort or excitement, it often disappears when those things vanish. But when purpose is rooted in something deeper, something beyond personal emotion, it becomes resilient. It survives storms, it provides direction when circumstances become uncertain. This idea leads to a profound shift in thinking. Instead of asking, what do I want from life, the question becomes, what was my life meant for? This question introduces humility. It suggests that life may have meaning beyond our individual desires. It invites people to consider that purpose might already exist, and that discovering it requires listening, reflection, and spiritual awareness. Many people resist this idea at first. The concept of discovering purpose, rather than creating it, can feel limiting. It challenges the modern assumption that individuals are entirely self-determining. Yet history shows that some of the most influential lives were not driven purely by personal ambition. They were guided by conviction. Conviction is different from preference. Preference says, this is what I feel like doing. A conviction says, this is what I believe I must do. Conviction often leads people toward responsibilities they did not initially choose. It calls them to serve others, to pursue justice, to sacrifice comfort for something meaningful. And surprisingly, many people who follow such convictions discover a deeper fulfillment than those who chase only personal desires. This is one reason messages about purpose sometimes feel uncomfortable. They challenge the cultural belief that life is primarily about self-expression. Instead, they suggest that life may be about alignment, aligning our lives with a purpose that exists beyond ourselves. For some people, this realization becomes a turning point. They begin to ask different questions. Instead of focusing solely on their ambitions, they reflect on their gifts, their opportunities, and the needs they see around them. They start considering how their life might contribute to something greater than personal success. And as they begin asking these questions, something remarkable often happens. Purpose begins to reveal itself gradually, not as a sudden flash of insight, but as a growing sense of direction. Small decisions begin to align with deeper values. Daily actions start reflecting long-term meaning. Life begins to feel less like random movement and more like a journey with intention. However, this discovery process requires patience. Purpose rarely appears instantly. It unfolds over time as individuals pay attention to the opportunities, responsibilities, and convictions that shape their lives. And this leads to an even more challenging question, one that many people struggle to confront. Because if purpose is something to be discovered rather than invented, then passion alone may not always lead us in the right direction. In fact, sometimes the things we are most passionate about can quietly pull us away from the very purpose we were meant to fulfill. And that realization leads directly into the next part of this conversation. When passion leads you the wrong way, what if the thing you feel most passionate about is not your purpose, but a distraction from it? In the previous section, we explored a powerful idea that purpose may not be something people invent for themselves, but something they gradually discover. This concept alone challenges a deeply rooted belief in modern culture. But once that assumption begins to shift, another important question appears. If purpose is not simply created by personal desire, then what role does passion actually play? For many people today, passion is treated as the ultimate guide for life decisions. From an early age, individuals hear advice like, follow your passion, do what you love. Find what excites you and make it your life's work. These phrases are repeated so often that they begin to feel like unquestionable wisdom. At first glance, this advice sounds inspiring. Passion can be energizing. It motivates people to pursue difficult goals, overcome obstacles, and commit themselves fully to what they care about. However, there is a hidden problem when passion becomes the primary compass for purpose. Passion is powerful, but it is also unpredictable. Human emotions change over time. Interests evolve. What excites someone in one season of life may feel unimportant in another. Because passion is closely tied to feelings, it can shift depending on circumstances, experiences, and personal growth. This instability makes passion a dangerous foundation for life's direction. Consider how often people change their interests over the course of a lifetime. A teenager may dream about becoming a musician, an athlete, or an entrepreneur. Years later, their interests may shift toward family life, community involvement, or entirely different career paths. These changes are natural. They are part of human development. But if purpose were defined only by passion, then purpose itself would constantly change. Life would become a series of shifting identities, each built on temporary enthusiasm. This is why many spiritual teachers caution against relying solely on passion to determine purpose. Messages often emphasized by voices like Philip Anthony Mitchell encourage people to examine passion carefully rather than assuming it is always trustworthy, because passion can sometimes mislead. History provides many examples of individuals who pursued their passions with great intensity, only to discover later that those passions destructive or empty outcomes. Passion can drive people toward recognition, wealth, influence, or power. None of these goals are inherently wrong, but when they become the center of a person's identity, they can slowly reshape priorities. Instead of asking what is meaningful or right, people may begin asking only what will bring success or admiration. In this way, passion can quietly transform into ambition without direction. Ambition itself is not negative. In fact, ambition has fueled many achievements throughout human history. It pushes individuals to work hard, innovate, and overcome limitations. But ambition disconnected from deeper values can become dangerous. It may lead people to sacrifice relationships for achievement, integrity for recognition, or character for advancement. When passion and ambition operate without guidance from truth or wisdom, they can steer a person toward a life that looks impressive on the outside but feels hollow within. This is one reason why some individuals reach extraordinary levels of success yet still experience a sense of emptiness. They followed their passion exactly as culture instructed them to do. They pursued what excited them. They achieved the goals they once believed would satisfy them. Yet after reaching those goals, they discover something surprising. Passion alone does not guarantee fulfillment. This realization can feel confusing because it contradicts everything society has promised. If passion is not enough, then what else is needed? The answer may lie in understanding the difference between passion and calling. Passion is an emotion. Calling is a responsibility. Passion asks, what excites me? Calling asks, what am I meant to do? These two questions may lead to very different answers. A calling often involves responsibilities that are not always comfortable or exciting. It may require discipline, patience, sacrifice, and perseverance through difficult seasons. Unlike passion, which fluctuates with emotion, a calling tends to remain steady even when feelings change. Someone who feels called to serve others, for example, may continue helping people even on days when motivation feels low. A person called to teach, lead, or protect others may persist through challenges because they believe their role matters. Calling provides a deeper sense of direction because it is rooted in conviction rather than emotion. Conviction gives people a reason to continue moving forward even when passion temporarily fades, and passion will fade at times. Every long-term commitment eventually includes moments of fatigue, frustration, or doubt. Artists experience creative blocks. Entrepreneurs face failures. Leaders encounter criticism. Caregivers grow exhausted. If passion were the only source of motivation, many people would abandon their path the moment difficulty appears. But when purpose is grounded in calling rather than emotion, individuals find strength to continue even when the journey becomes difficult. Another important distinction between passion and purpose involves impact. Passion often focuses on personal enjoyment or achievement. Purpose tends to focus on contribution. In other words, passion asks how an activity makes someone feel, while purpose asks how a life affects others. This difference shifts the center of attention. Instead of building life entirely around personal satisfaction, purpose invites individuals to consider the needs around them. Where can their abilities make a difference? What problems are they uniquely positioned to help solve? Who might benefit from the gifts they possess? These questions move purpose beyond the self and into the realm of service. And surprisingly, many people discover that their deepest fulfillment emerges not from pursuing personal excitement, but from contributing to something meaningful. Service creates a sense of significance that passion alone cannot provide. This does not mean passion has no value. Passion can be a helpful signal. It may reveal areas where individuals have natural interest, curiosity, or enthusiasm. Those interests can sometimes align with purpose. But passion must be examined, not blindly followed. It must be guided by wisdom, shaped by values, and aligned with a deeper understanding of meaning. Otherwise, passion may lead people toward temporary excitement rather than lasting significance. When individuals begin to recognize this difference, their approach to life begins to change. Instead of chasing whatever feels exciting in the moment, they start paying attention to the responsibilities, opportunities, and convictions that consistently appear in their lives. They begin asking different questions. Instead of asking only what they love doing, they consider where their gifts can make the greatest impact. Instead of focusing solely on personal ambition, they begin considering how their lives might contribute to something greater. And this shift in perspective reveals another uncomfortable truth. Because modern culture strongly encourages people to place themselves at the center of their own story. Yet real purpose often requires moving beyond that mindset. It requires recognizing that life may not be primarily about personal fulfillment, but about participating in something much larger than the individual. And once people begin to see that possibility, they must confront another challenging idea, that the culture surrounding them may actually be encouraging a view of purpose that is deeply self-centered and ultimately unsatisfying. The culture that teaches the wrong purpose. What if the greatest obstacle to discovering your real purpose isn't failure, but the culture surrounding you every single day? In the previous section, we explored how passion, while powerful, can sometimes lead people away from their true purpose. Passion alone is unstable because emotions change, and when life is guided only by what feels exciting in the moment, direction can easily shift. But this raises another important question. If passion can mislead people, why do so many individuals rely on it so heavily when trying to define their purpose? The answer lies in the cultural environment that shapes how people think about life. Modern society constantly communicates messages about success, identity, and fulfillment. These messages appear everywhere through advertising, social media, entertainment, education, and motivational content. And one idea appears again and again: your life is primarily about you. This message sounds subtle, but its influence is powerful. It encourages individuals to see themselves as the central focus of their own story. Personal happiness becomes the ultimate goal. Personal achievement becomes the measure of success. People are encouraged to ask questions such as, what makes me happy? What will make me successful? What will help me stand out? What will bring me recognition? None of these questions are inherently wrong. Wanting happiness, achievement, and recognition is part of normal human experience. However, when these desires become the foundation of life's purpose, something important begins to shift. Life slowly becomes centered around the self. This shift happens gradually and often without people noticing it. From a young age, individuals are taught to build their identity around personal goals and accomplishments. Students compete for academic success. Professionals compete for promotions and influence. Social media encourages people to measure their worth through visibility and approval. In this environment, it becomes easy to assume that the purpose of life is simply to maximize personal fulfillment. But this assumption raises an important problem. If everyone builds their life around personal success, what happens to the deeper responsibilities that connect people to one another? Purpose begins to shrink. Instead of asking how life can contribute to something meaningful, people begin focusing primarily on how life can satisfy their own desires. Messages often emphasized by speakers like Philip Anthony Mitchell challenge this cultural perspective. They encourage listeners to reconsider whether a self-centered definition of purpose can ever truly satisfy the human soul. Because history offers a fascinating pattern. Many individuals who pursued only personal success eventually discovered that success alone does not bring the fulfillment they expected. They achieved recognition, financial stability, or influence, yet something inside them still felt incomplete. This experience has been described by psychologists, philosophers, and spiritual thinkers across generations. Humans appear to possess a deep desire for meaning, not just pleasure. Pleasure is temporary, meaning endures. Pleasure satisfies emotions for a moment. Meaning satisfies the deeper need to believe that life matters. When purpose is defined only through personal success, people may achieve pleasure without ever experiencing true meaning. This is why some of the most accomplished individuals in history have spoken openly about feeling empty despite their achievements. They reached the goals culture told them would bring fulfillment. Yet those goals did not answer the deeper question of why their life mattered. The problem is not success itself. Success can be valuable when it is connected to something meaningful. The problem arises when success becomes the ultimate goal rather than a tool for contributing to something larger. Culture rarely emphasizes this distinction. Instead, it often glorifies the idea of self-made identity. Individuals are told that they can become anything they want, define their own truth, and shape their own purpose without reference to anything beyond themselves. At first glance, this idea appears liberating. But it also places an enormous burden on the individual. If purpose must be entirely invented, then every person becomes responsible for creating meaning out of nothing. This can lead to constant pressure. People may feel they must continually reinvent themselves in order to maintain a sense of significance. They chase new experiences, new goals, and new achievements, hoping that the next accomplishment will finally bring the satisfaction they seek. Yet the cycle often repeats. Each success provides temporary excitement before the question returns. Is there something more? This question points to a deeper truth. Human beings are relational and purposeful creatures. We naturally seek connection, responsibility, and contribution. We want to know that our lives matter not only to ourselves but to others. This is why some of the most meaningful moments in life are not connected to personal achievement. They are connected to impact, helping someone in need, encouraging someone who feels discouraged, contributing to a community, protecting what is valuable, serving others with humility and compassion. These experiences often produce a deeper sense of fulfillment than personal success alone. Why? Because they align with something fundamental about human nature. People were not designed to live entirely for themselves. Purpose expands when individuals begin looking beyond their own desires. When life becomes connected to service, responsibility, and contribution, meaning begins to grow. This perspective changes how people evaluate success. Instead of asking, what can I achieve? They begin asking, what difference can I make? The shift may seem small, but its impact is profound. A life centered on personal success often leads to competition, comparison, and constant pressure to prove one's worth. A life centered on contribution leads to collaboration, compassion, and a sense of shared purpose. The difference between these two paths becomes clearer over time. One path may bring recognition, but still leave a person searching for deeper meaning. The other path may not always bring fame or admiration, but it often produces a sense of fulfillment that cannot be easily explained. Yet choosing the second path requires courage, because it challenges many of the assumptions promoted by modern culture. It asks people to measure their life not only by what they achieve, by who they become. It invites individuals to pursue character as much as accomplishment. It encourages them to value humility, integrity, and service as much as ambition. These ideas can feel uncomfortable because they challenge the narrative that life is primarily about personal success. But for those willing to explore them, they open the door to a deeper understanding of purpose. Purpose begins to look less like a personal project and more like a calling that connects individual gifts with the needs of the world. And this realization introduces another critical distinction, because not every dream or ambition is necessarily a calling. Many people spend years pursuing goals they believe represent their purpose, only to discover later that those goals were driven by ambition rather than genuine calling. Understanding the difference between those two forces can determine the direction of an entire life. And that is the question we must explore next: the difference between ambition and calling. What if the goal you've been chasing for years was never your calling, only your ambition? By now, a pattern is beginning to emerge. First, we explored how many people misunderstand purpose by assuming it must be created entirely by personal desire. Then we saw how passion, while powerful, can sometimes mislead individuals because emotions constantly change. After that, we examined how modern culture reinforces a self-centered idea of purpose that prioritizes personal success above deeper meaning. These three influences: personal desire, emotional passion, and cultural pressure, often combine to shape the direction of a person's life. But there is another powerful force that frequently hides beneath them. That force is ambition. Ambition is one of the most celebrated traits in modern society. People admire ambitious individuals because ambition suggests determination, vision, and a strong desire to achieve something significant. From an early age, many individuals are encouraged to be ambitious. Students are told to aim high. Professionals are encouraged to pursue promotions, recognition, and leadership. Entrepreneurs are praised for building large companies or creating innovative products. Ambition fuels progress. Without ambition, many achievements in science, art, technology, and social development would never have happened. Yet ambition also has a hidden danger. Ambition focuses primarily on what a person wants to accomplish, while calling focuses on what a person is meant to do. At first glance, those two ideas may appear similar, but the difference between them is profound. Ambition begins with personal desire. Calling begins with responsibility. Ambition asks, what do I want to achieve in life? Calling asks, what has been entrusted to me to do? When life is guided primarily by ambition, individuals tend to build their identity around achievements. They measure success through visible results, titles, accomplishments, financial rewards, influence, or recognition. This mindset can create extraordinary drive. Ambitious individuals often work harder than others, take greater risks, and pursue opportunities with relentless determination. But ambition alone does not guarantee that a person is moving in the right direction. It only guarantees movement. Someone can spend years climbing a ladder of success, only to discover later that the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. This is one of the most difficult realizations a person can experience. After investing years of effort into a career, project, or goal, it can be painful to consider that the pursuit may have been driven more by ambition than by genuine purpose. Many individuals experience this realization during major life transitions. A promotion that once seemed exciting may suddenly feel empty. A career that once felt meaningful may begin to feel disconnected from deeper values. These moments can create confusion. People may begin asking questions they have never seriously considered before. Why am I doing this? Does my work truly matter? Is this the life I was meant to live? These questions are not signs of failure. They are signs of awakening. They indicate that a person is beginning to examine the deeper motivations behind their decisions. Voices like Philip Anthony Mitchell often challenge people to ask these difficult questions because they expose the difference between ambition and calling, and understanding that difference can change the direction of an entire life. One way to recognize ambition is by examining its primary motivation. Ambition often seeks personal elevation. It focuses on rising higher, gaining more influence, increasing visibility, or achieving greater recognition. There is nothing inherently wrong with these outcomes. In fact, Individuals with influence and resources can sometimes create positive change in the world. But when personal elevation becomes the main goal, ambition can quietly reshape priorities. People may begin making decisions based primarily on what will increase their status or success rather than what aligns with their deepest convictions. This shift can lead to subtle compromises. Integrity may be sacrificed for opportunity. Relationships may be neglected in pursuit of advancement. Personal identity may become tied entirely to professional performance. Over time, ambition can create a life that looks impressive from the outside but feels exhausting within. Calling, on the other hand, operates differently. Calling does not begin with the question of how high someone can climb. It begins with the question of where someone is needed. Calling often emerges from a sense of responsibility towards something greater than personal ambition. It may involve serving others, solving meaningful problems, protecting what is valuable, or helping people grow. Unlike ambition, calling is not always glamorous. In fact, many callings require humility, patience, and quiet dedication. They may involve work that receives little recognition but produces lasting impact. A teacher who dedicates decades to shaping young minds may never achieve fame. A community leader who serves faithfully may never receive public applause. Yet the influence of their work can extend far beyond what ambition alone might produce. Another important difference between ambition and calling is endurance. Ambition is often fueled by excitement and the anticipation of future rewards. When progress slows or obstacles appear, motivation may weaken. Calling, however, tends to endure through difficulty. A person who believes they are called to something meaningful may continue their work even when recognition disappears or circumstances become challenging. This endurance comes from conviction rather than excitement. Conviction provides stability because it is anchored in belief rather than emotion. It allows people to remain committed even when their work becomes difficult, repetitive, or unnoticed. This is why many individuals who live according to their calling demonstrate remarkable perseverance. They are not driven solely by ambition or personal gain. They are driven by the belief that their work matters. Yet discovering a calling is rarely simple. Unlike ambition, which often appears clearly through personal goals and desires, calling tends to reveal itself gradually. It may appear through opportunities that repeatedly arise. It may become visible through the needs people encounter around them. Sometimes it emerges through the unique combination of talents, experiences, and convictions that shape a person's life. Recognizing a calling often requires reflection. People must ask themselves questions that go deeper than career goals or financial success. They may ask, what problems do I feel compelled to address? Where do my abilities naturally align with the needs of others? What responsibilities keep appearing in my life? What kind of impact do I feel drawn to make? These questions shift the focus away from personal ambition and toward meaningful contribution. When individuals begin thinking this way, they often notice something surprising. Their purpose may not look exactly like the dreams they once imagined. Calling sometimes leads people into unexpected roles or paths. It may require them to step away from pursuits that once seemed important. This transition can feel uncomfortable. Letting go of ambition is not easy, especially when that ambition has shaped one's identity for many years. But for those who are willing to reconsider their direction, something remarkable often happens. They begin to experience a different kind of fulfillment. Instead of constantly striving for recognition or advancement, they find satisfaction in knowing that their life contributes to something meaningful. Their work becomes less about proving their worth and more about serving a purpose greater than themselves. And this shift creates a deeper form of peace. Because when a person's life aligns with their calling, they no longer feel the same pressure to constantly chase the next achievement. They can focus on faithfully fulfilling the responsibilities placed before them. But discovering a calling requires one more crucial step. It requires the courage to confront a difficult truth. Because sometimes the greatest obstacle to living out a calling is not external circumstances, it is the inner resistance that keeps the ambitions they have always pursued. And overcoming that resistance is where the real transformation begins. The inner resistance that keeps people from their calling. What if the biggest barrier between you and your true calling isn't the opportunity, talent, or resources, but your own resistance to change? By now, the contrast between ambition and calling has become clearer. Ambition often pushes people toward personal elevation, toward success, recognition, and achievement. Calling, however, pulls people toward responsibility, toward service, meaning, and contribution. Yet understanding this difference intellectually is one thing. Living according to it is another. Many people recognize, at least at some level, that their lives may be driven more by ambition than by calling. They may sense that the direction they are pursuing does not fully align with their deeper values or convictions. But even when this awareness appears, most people do not immediately change course. Why? Because change requires confronting inner resistance. This resistance is subtle but powerful. It does not always appear as obvious fear or refusal. Often it hides beneath rational explanations and practical concerns. People tell themselves things like, "It's too late to change now. I've already invested too much time in this path. What will people think if I walk away from my current success? What if I fail at something new?" These thoughts feel logical, even responsible. Yet they can quietly prevent individuals from pursuing the deeper direction they sense within themselves. One of the strongest forms of inner resistance is identity attachment. Over time, people build their identity around their achievements, roles, and social positions. A successful professional may see themselves primarily as a lawyer, executive, entrepreneur, or artist. Their sense of self becomes closely connected to what they do and how others perceive them. When a person begins questioning their direction, it can feel like questioning their identity itself. If someone has spent years building a reputation in a particular field, stepping away from that path may feel like losing a part of who they are. This psychological attachment can be extremely powerful. Even if someone senses that their calling lies elsewhere, the idea of letting go of their current identity may feel too threatening. Another source of resistance is fear of uncertainty. Ambition often provides clear goals and measurable progress. Promotions, income increases, awards, and recognition create visible signs of advancement. Calling, however, does not always offer such predictable rewards. A person who follows their calling may enter a path where success is harder to measure. They may invest years in work that produces quiet influence rather than public recognition. For individuals accustomed to ambition-driven success, this uncertainty can feel uncomfortable. Humans naturally prefer environments where outcomes are predictable. When the path ahead becomes unclear, anxiety increases. But meaningful callings rarely unfold according to perfectly defined plans. They often require trust, patience, and the willingness to move forward without knowing every step in advance. This is where inner resistance becomes especially strong. People may choose the familiar path of ambition rather than the uncertain path of calling simply because familiarity feels safer. However, safety does not always lead to fulfillment. Many individuals who remain on familiar paths eventually experience a lingering sense of dissatisfaction. They may achieve everything they once aimed for, yet still feel that something essential is missing. This feeling is often difficult to explain. From the outside, their life appears successful. Their career may be stable. Their accomplishments may impress others. Yet internally, a quiet question continues to surface. Is this really what I was meant to do? Messages often emphasized by voices like Philip Anthony Mitchell challenge people to confront this question honestly, because ignoring it does not make it disappear. In fact, the longer individuals ignore the tension between ambition and calling, the stronger the internal conflict may become. Over time, this conflict can manifest as restlessness, burnout, or a sense of disconnection from one's own life. Burnout, in particular, is often misunderstood. Many assume burnout results only from working too hard. While excessive work can certainly contribute to exhaustion, burnout frequently occurs when effort is invested in something that lacks deeper meaning. When people work tirelessly toward goals that do not align with their true convictions, the work itself begins to feel draining. Energy fades not because effort is too great, but because purpose is too weak. Calling operates differently. Even when work is difficult, individuals who feel connected to their calling often experience a deeper sense of motivation. The work may still be tiring, but it feels meaningful. The difference between these two experiences can be profound. Yet overcoming inner resistance requires more than recognizing the problem. It requires courage. Courage to examine long-held assumptions. Courage to question whether past decisions still align with present convictions. Courage to release identities that no longer reflect who a person is becoming. This process can be uncomfortable because it forces individuals to confront the possibility that some of their previous pursuits were driven by ambition rather than true purpose. But recognizing this truth is not a sign of failure, it is a sign of growth. Human beings evolve over time. Experiences reshape priorities. What once seemed important may gradually lose its significance as deeper values emerge. Acknowledging this evolution allows people to realign their lives with greater authenticity. However, one more layer of resistance often appears during this process. That layer is external expectation. Society tends to reward visible success. When someone achieves recognition, stability, or financial prosperity, others often encourage them to continue pursuing that path. Friends, family members, and colleagues may struggle to understand why a successful individual would consider changing direction. They may say things like, "You've worked so hard to get where you are. Why risk everything now? Most people would love to have your position." These reactions are usually well-intentioned. People want to protect those they care about from making decisions that appear risky or uncertain. Yet external expectations can unintentionally reinforce inner resistance. If someone fears disappointing others or losing their approval, they may feel pressured to continue pursuing ambitions that no longer align with their calling. This creates a difficult tension between personal authenticity and social approval. Choosing calling often requires the willingness to move forward, even when others do not fully understand the decision. This does not mean ignoring wise advice or rejecting community guidance. Thoughtful counsel can be extremely valuable during times of transition, but ultimately, each person must take responsibility for the direction of their own life. No one else can fully determine what calling belongs to them. Recognizing this responsibility can feel both liberating and intimidating. Liberating because it allows individuals to pursue meaning rather than simply meeting external expectations. Intimidating because it requires them to trust their convictions enough to act upon them. But for those who overcome inner resistance, something remarkable often happens. Their life begins to align with a deeper sense of purpose. Decisions become guided less by fear or external pressure and more by conviction. Work begins to feel connected to values that truly matter. The pursuit of success no longer dominates their identity. Instead, success becomes a byproduct of faithfully fulfilling the calling placed before them. Yet even after someone begins overcoming inner resistance, another challenge remains. Because discovering a calling does not automatically reveal how that calling should be lived out. And understanding how purpose actually unfolds in a person's life is the next crucial step in the journey. Purpose is revealed through obedience, not discovery. What if purpose isn't something you discover in a moment of clarity, but something that unfolds only after you start walking in obedience? Up to this point, we have examined several powerful ideas. We explored how culture encourages people to create their own purpose, how passion can sometimes mislead individuals, and how ambition can distract people from their true calling. We also looked at the inner resistance that keeps many from stepping into the deeper direction they sense within themselves. But even when someone becomes willing to pursue their calling, another challenge appears. How does purpose actually become clear? Many people imagine that discovering purpose should feel like a dramatic moment of revelation. They expect a sudden insight, a clear vision, or a powerful realization that instantly reveals exactly what they are meant to do with their lives. This expectation is deeply embedded in modern thinking. Books, movies, and motivational speeches often portray purpose as something people suddenly find. The story usually follows a familiar pattern. A person experiences confusion about life, then encounters a breakthrough moment that reveals their destiny. While this narrative is inspiring, it rarely reflects how purpose actually develops in real life. For most individuals, purpose is not discovered through a single moment of clarity. It is revealed gradually through obedience. This concept challenges another popular assumption about purpose. Instead of waiting until the entire path becomes visible, individuals are often called to take the next faithful step even when they do not fully understand where it will lead. This idea appears repeatedly in the teachings and messages shared by leaders like Philip Anthony Mitchell. The emphasis is often placed not on finding purpose through endless reflection, but on living faithfully in the responsibilities already present in one's life. In other words, purpose rarely begins with a grand mission. It usually begins with small acts of obedience. Consider how many meaningful life paths actually start. A teacher may not initially plan to influence thousands of students. They begin by helping a single classroom learn and grow. A community leader may not set out to transform an entire city. They begin by addressing one local problem or helping one group of people. A mentor may not expect to shape someone's future. They begin by offering guidance to one person who needs support. These small acts may appear insignificant at first, yet over time they begin to reveal something important. They reveal direction. Purpose often becomes clearer only after individuals begin faithfully fulfilling the opportunities already placed before them. Waiting for perfect clarity before taking action can actually delay purpose rather than reveal it. Many people spend years searching for their true calling without ever taking meaningful steps forward. They read books, attend seminars, or analyze their strengths and interests repeatedly. Reflection can certainly be valuable, Understanding one's abilities and values can help clarify direction. But purpose does not emerge from reflection alone. It emerges from action. When individuals act faithfully in the responsibilities already within their reach, new opportunities often begin to appear. These opportunities create pathways that were previously invisible. Imagine someone standing at the edge of a forest path at night. From their current position, they may only see a few steps ahead. If they refuse to move until the entire path becomes visible, they may remain standing still forever. But if they begin walking, each step forward allows them to see slightly further. Purpose often unfolds in exactly this way. Clarity grows through movement. This is why obedience plays such a central role in discovering purpose. Obedience means responding faithfully to what one already knows to be right or meaningful, even if the larger outcome remains unclear. It requires humility because it acknowledges that individuals do not always possess full understanding of the future. Instead of demanding immediate certainty, obedience focuses on present responsibility. What has been entrusted to me today? Who needs help right now? What opportunity to serve or contribute is already in front of me? These questions ground purpose in practical action rather than abstract speculation. Another reason obedience reveals purpose is that it shapes character. Calling is not only about what someone does, it is also about who they become. The process of faithfully carrying out small responsibilities builds qualities that are essential for larger influence, qualities such as patience, integrity, perseverance, and humility. Without these traits, even great opportunities can become destructive. History offers countless examples of individuals who gained influence or power before their character was fully prepared for it. In many of these cases, success led to ethical compromise or personal collapse. Purpose that grows slowly through obedience allows character to develop alongside responsibility. Each step prepares the individual for the next level of influence. This process may feel slow compared to the rapid success stories often celebrated in modern culture. Society tends to admire quick breakthroughs and dramatic achievements, but genuine purpose rarely unfolds overnight. It develops through consistency. Day after day, individuals continue fulfilling the responsibilities before them, often without knowing exactly where those efforts will lead. And yet, when they look back years later, they can often see a pattern. The seemingly small decisions they made in obedience gradually formed a pathway towards something meaningful. Another surprising aspect of purpose is that it often involves serving others before serving oneself. When people begin asking how they can contribute to the needs around them, they often discover abilities they did not previously recognize. Helping others reveals gifts, solving problems develops skills, serving communities builds relationships. These experiences expand a person's capacity and gradually reveal where their unique contribution may lie. Purpose therefore grows not only through introspection but through engagement with the world. Instead of asking endlessly, "What is my purpose?" individuals begin living in a way that allows purpose to emerge naturally through their actions. Yet obedience requires something that many people struggle to embrace. It requires patience. Modern culture encourages immediate results. Technology allows people to receive information, entertainment, and communication instantly. Because of this environment, many individuals expect progress in life to happen quickly as well. But meaningful purpose rarely operates according to the pace of instant gratification. It often unfolds over years or even decades. This slow development can feel frustrating at times. Individuals may question whether their efforts truly matter, especially when results are not immediately visible. However, patience plays a crucial role in the formation of purpose. Patience allows individuals to remain committed during seasons when progress appears small or uncertain. And these seasons are often where the most important growth occurs. It is during these periods that people develop resilience, deepen their understanding of others, and refine the values that guide their decisions. Over time, these qualities become the foundation upon which meaningful calling is built. Yet there is another challenge that appears once purpose begins to unfold through obedience. Because purpose, when lived out authentically, often leads individuals into situations that require sacrifice. The deeper someone moves into their calling, the more likely they are to encounter moments where comfort must be exchanged for responsibility. And understanding why sacrifice is essential to purpose is the next critical step in this journey. Why real purpose always requires sacrifice? What if the reason many people never reach their true purpose is simple: they refuse to pay the cost that purpose requires? By this point in the journey, several truths have begun to emerge. Purpose is not simply created by personal desire. It cannot be sustained by passion alone. It is not the same as ambition. and it is rarely revealed all at once. Instead, purpose unfolds gradually through obedience, through faithful responses to the opportunities and responsibilities placed before us. But once someone begins walking that path, another reality becomes clear. Real purpose always carries a cost. This idea stands in direct contrast to the way purpose is often presented in modern culture. Many motivational messages portray purpose as the ultimate path to personal happiness. The story is usually told like this: once you find your purpose, everything in life will align perfectly. Work will feel effortless. Joy will come naturally. Every challenge will feel meaningful. While purpose can certainly bring deep fulfillment, this picture is incomplete. Purpose does not remove difficulty. In many cases, it introduces greater responsibility. When individuals step into roles that truly matter, roles that serve others, solve problems, or influence communities, they quickly discover that meaningful work often requires sacrifice. This is why so many people struggle when they begin pursuing a genuine calling. At first, the idea of purpose feels exciting. The possibility of living a meaningful life inspires hope and motivation. But as the journey continues, the reality of sacrifice begins to appear. Sacrifice can take many forms. Sometimes it means giving up comfort in order to pursue something meaningful. It may involve long hours of effort when others are resting. It may require persistence when results are slow or invisible. Other times, sacrifice involves releasing opportunities that might bring personal success but distract from deeper responsibility. For example, someone who feels called to serve a community may decline a career path that offers higher income but less meaningful impact. A person who believes they are meant to mentor others may invest significant time in helping people grow, even when that work receives little recognition. In these situations, sacrifice is not simply about losing something. It is about choosing what matters most. The willingness to make that choice reveals how deeply someone is committed to their purpose. Messages frequently emphasized by voices like Philip Anthony Mitchell often challenge listeners to recognize this truth. Purpose is not merely about discovering what you are meant to do, it is about deciding what you are willing to give up in order to live it out. This decision can feel uncomfortable because human beings naturally prefer convenience. Comfortable routines feel safe. Predictable schedules reduce stress. Personal freedom allows people to focus on their own desires. But meaningful callings rarely fit neatly within comfortable boundaries. They stretch people beyond their preferred limits. Someone who is called to lead must often carry responsibility for others. Leadership requires patience, accountability, and the willingness to make difficult decisions. Someone who is called to teach must invest energy in helping others understand ideas that may take years to fully grasp. Someone who is called to serve vulnerable communities may face emotional exhaustion as they witness suffering and hardship. These experiences demand sacrifice, yet they also reveal something profound about purpose. Purpose becomes meaningful precisely because it involves sacrifice. If a calling required nothing difficult, if it demanded no effort, no perseverance, no personal cost, it would carry little significance. Sacrifice transforms ordinary effort into meaningful contribution. It demonstrates that something is valuable enough to deserve dedication and commitment. History repeatedly shows that the most influential individuals often lived lives marked by sacrifice. They invested time, energy, and resources into causes that extended beyond their own comfort. They faced criticism, obstacles, and moments of discouragement. Yet they continued forward because they believed their work mattered. Interestingly, sacrifice does not always appear dramatic or heroic. Often it occurs in quiet, unseen ways. A parent sacrificing sleep to care for a child. A mentor dedicating time to guide someone through a difficult season. A community volunteer working tirelessly behind the scenes to help others. These actions may never attract public recognition, yet they embody the essence of purpose. They reflect a commitment to something greater than personal convenience. However, one reason many people avoid sacrifice is because they misunderstand its relationship with happiness. Modern culture often suggests that happiness comes primarily from maximizing pleasure and minimizing discomfort. From this perspective, sacrifice appears undesirable. Why willingly give up comfort or convenience if happiness is the ultimate goal? But deeper reflection reveals that the most meaningful forms of happiness rarely emerge from comfort alone. Instead, they arise from purposeful effort. Think about some of the experiences people value most in life: building meaningful relationships, raising families, creating art, leading communities, helping others overcome challenges. None of these pursuits are easy. They require patience, resilience, and sometimes significant sacrifice. Yet they also produce a deeper form of satisfaction than temporary pleasure. This satisfaction comes from knowing that one's as life contributes to something meaningful. Purpose therefore reshapes how individuals think about sacrifice. Instead of viewing sacrifice as loss, they begin to see it as investment. The time, energy, and effort they give become investments in a larger mission. And while the rewards may not always be immediate, they often appear in ways that extend far beyond personal benefit. Communities grow stronger, individuals receive guidance and encouragement, problems find solutions. Purpose multiplies impact through the sacrifices of those who pursue it faithfully. However, sacrifice introduces another challenge that many people do not anticipate. Because once individuals begin investing themselves deeply in meaningful work, they may encounter moments when their efforts are misunderstood or even opposed. Not everyone appreciates sacrifice. Not everyone supports individuals who choose purpose over comfort. In fact, people who pursue their calling often face criticism from those who do not understand their decisions. Friends may question why someone chooses a difficult path. Colleagues may view dedication as unnecessary or excessive. Society may undervalue contributions that do not produce immediate financial or social rewards. These reactions can create discouragement. They may tempt individuals to return to easier paths that promise quicker recognition or approval. Yet this tension reveals another important truth about purpose. Purpose is not validated by public approval. It is sustained by conviction. Conviction allows individuals to remain committed, even when their sacrifices are not immediately recognized or appreciated. It anchors their motivation in the belief that their work matters beyond temporary recognition. But sustaining that conviction requires something deeper than personal determination, because even the most dedicated individuals eventually encounter moments of exhaustion, doubt, or discouragement. And when those moments appear, they must rely on something stronger than motivation alone. They must rely on discipline, the daily commitment to continue pursuing purpose, even when the emotional excitement fades. Understanding how discipline sustains purpose is the next step in this journey. Discipline, the hidden force behind purpose. What if the difference between people who fulfill their calling and those who abandon it isn't talent, opportunity, or passion, but discipline? As we continue exploring the deeper realities of purpose, a clear pattern has begun to form. Purpose is not simply discovered through a sudden moment of clarity. It is not sustained by passion alone. It often requires sacrifice, perseverance, and the willingness to endure challenges that others may not fully understand. But there is another force that quietly determines whether someone continues pursuing their calling or eventually walks away from it. That force is discipline. Discipline is rarely celebrated in modern culture with the same enthusiasm as passion or inspiration. Stories about purpose often focus on moments of excitement, breakthroughs, or dramatic turning points. But behind nearly every meaningful accomplishment lies something far less glamorous: consistent, disciplined effort over long periods of time. This is because purpose does not unfold through occasional bursts of motivation. It unfolds through daily commitment. At the beginning of any calling, enthusiasm is often strong. The vision of living a meaningful life creates energy and hope. People imagine the difference they might make and feel motivated to begin the journey. However, as time passes, reality begins to reshape that initial excitement. Challenges appear, progress slows, responsibilities multiply. Results may not arrive as quickly as expected. During these seasons, passion alone is not enough to sustain forward movement. This is where discipline becomes essential. Discipline is the ability to continue doing what is necessary even when motivation fades. It is the practice of showing up consistently, honoring commitments, and remaining faithful to responsibilities regardless of emotional fluctuations. Many individuals underestimate how critical this quality is. They assume that people who accomplish great things simply possess extraordinary talent or constant inspiration. But when we examine the lives of individuals who have lived out meaningful callings, we often find a different story. We find people who committed themselves to disciplined routines. They practiced their craft repeatedly. They continued serving others even when recognition was absent. They remained dedicated to their mission during seasons when progress seemed almost invisible. Messages frequently emphasized by leaders such as Philip Anthony Mitchell highlight this reality. Purpose is not sustained by feelings but by faithfulness. Faithfulness requires discipline. Consider the example of someone called to teach. Teaching is not simply about delivering inspiring lessons occasionally. It involves preparing materials, studying deeply, evaluating progress, and adapting to the needs of students. Much of this work happens behind the scenes. Similarly, someone called to lead a community does not simply appear during moments of public visibility. Leadership requires planning, listening, resolving conflicts, and making difficult decisions that may never receive recognition. Again, the majority of this work depends on discipline consistency. The same principle applies to nearly every meaningful calling. Writers must write regularly, even when inspiration feels distant. Mentors must remain present for those they guide, even when progress seems slow. Servants must continue helping others even when gratitude is not expressed. These actions may appear ordinary from the outside, yet over time their cumulative impact becomes extraordinary. Discipline transforms small, consistent efforts into lasting influence. However, maintaining discipline over long periods is not easy. One reason is that modern culture often encourages the opposite mindset. People are frequently told to prioritize what feels exciting or fulfilling in the moment. If something becomes difficult or tedious, they may assume it is a sign they should move on to something else. This mentality can be dangerous when applied to purpose, because every meaningful calling eventually includes seasons that feel repetitive, exhausting, or discouraging. Without discipline, individuals may interpret these seasons as signs that they chose the wrong path. In reality, these moments are often part of the process through which purpose matures. Think about any skill that requires mastery. Musicians must practice scales repeatedly before performing complex compositions. Athletes must train their bodies through countless hours of conditioning. Craftsmen must refine their techniques through continuous repetition. In each case, discipline builds the foundation upon which excellence rests. Purpose operates according to a similar principle. Daily faithfulness strengthens the ability to serve effectively. Another challenge that discipline addresses is distraction. Modern life is filled with constant interruptions. Technology provides endless streams of information, entertainment, and communication. Social media encourages people to compare their progress with others or chase visibility rather than depth. These distractions can quietly erode focus. Someone pursuing a meaningful calling may suddenly feel tempted by opportunities that promise quicker success or greater recognition. Without discipline, it becomes easy to abandon long-term purpose in exchange for short-term rewards. Discipline protects against this tendency by anchoring individuals in consistent habits. When someone commits to daily practices that support their calling, whether that involves study, service, creation, or leadership, they build structures that keep them aligned with their purpose. These structures reduce the likelihood of drifting away from meaningful work. Another important role of discipline is its ability to sustain purpose during seasons of obscurity. Not every stage of a meaningful life includes visible progress or public acknowledgement. In fact, many of the most formative periods occur when individuals labor quietly without external validation. These seasons can test a person's commitment. When recognition disappears and results remain uncertain, individuals must decide whether their purpose still matters enough to continue. Discipline provides the strength to remain faithful during these times. It shifts motivation away from external rewards and toward internal conviction. Someone who is disciplined continues fulfilling their responsibilities, not because others are watching, but because they believe their work has intrinsic value. This mindset creates resilience. It allows individuals to persevere through long periods of preparation before visible outcomes appear. History offers countless examples of people whose greatest impact emerged only after years of unnoticed effort. Their persistence was not driven by constant excitement. It was sustained by disciplined faithfulness to the work placed before them. Yet discipline also reveals an important truth about purpose. Purpose is not simply about doing meaningful work occasionally. It is about becoming the kind of person who can sustain meaningful work for a lifetime. Discipline shapes character. It teaches patience when progress is slow. It strengthens integrity when shortcuts appear tempting. It develops endurance when challenges feel overwhelming. Over time, these qualities form the inner structure necessary to carry greater responsibility. But discipline alone is not the final piece of the puzzle, because even the most disciplined individuals eventually encounter moments when the path becomes extremely difficult. Moments when sacrifices feel heavy. Moments when criticism, failure, or exhaustion threaten to weaken conviction. In those moments, something deeper must anchor a person's purpose. That anchor is identity. Understanding who you truly are and why your calling matters is what ultimately determines whether you continue the journey. And that deeper foundation of identity is what we must explore next. Identity, the foundation that sustains purpose. What if the real reason people lose their purpose isn't because the mission was wrong, but because their identity was never strong enough to carry it? Throughout this journey, we have explored many of the forces that shape a person's understanding of purpose. We examined the cultural belief that individuals must invent their own purpose. We saw how passion can sometimes mislead people, how ambition can distract them from their calling, and how inner resistance often prevents them from stepping into deeper responsibility. We also explored how purpose unfolds gradually through obedience, why meaningful work always requires sacrifice, and how discipline becomes essential for sustaining long-term commitment. But beneath all of these elements lies something even more fundamental. That foundation is identity. Identity answers one of the most important questions a person can ever ask. Who am I? At first glance, this question may seem unrelated to purpose. Many people assume that identity naturally emerges from what they do. A person becomes known by their profession, their accomplishments, or their social role. Someone might say, I am a teacher, I am a business owner, or I am an artist. While these roles describe activities or contributions, they do not fully define identity. If identity becomes tied exclusively to achievements or positions, it becomes fragile. Why? Because roles can change, careers can end, businesses can fail, positions of influence can disappear, public recognition can fade. When identity is built entirely on external success, losing those external markers can create a deep crisis. A person who once felt confident and purposeful may suddenly feel lost if the foundation of their identity collapses. This is why many individuals experience identity crisis during major life transitions. Retirement, career changes, financial setbacks, or public criticism can cause people to question their worth if their identity has been built primarily on accomplishments. Purpose cannot remain stable if identity is unstable. Messages often emphasized by leaders such as Philip Anthony Mitchell repeatedly highlight this principle. Calling flows from identity, not the other way around. In other words, what a person does should grow out of who they are, not replace it. When identity is secure, individuals can pursue their purpose with confidence and humility. They understand that their value does not depend entirely on performance or public recognition. Instead, their sense of worth is rooted in something deeper. This deeper identity provides stability during difficult seasons. Imagine someone whose purpose involves serving others, teaching, mentoring, leading, or helping communities grow. Along that path, they may encounter criticism, setbacks, or moments when their efforts seem unappreciated. If their identity depends on constant approval or visible success, these challenges can quickly become discouraging. But if their identity is grounded in deeper convictions about who they are and why their work matters, they can remain steady even when circumstances become difficult. Identity acts like an anchor. It holds a person steady when the winds of success or failure attempt to push them off course. Another reason identity matters is because purpose often attracts pressure. When individuals begin making meaningful contributions, expectations increase, responsibilities grow, others may depend on their leadership or guidance. This pressure can create emotional strain. Without a stable sense of identity, individuals may begin measuring their worth through their ability to meet every expectation placed upon them. When they inevitably fall short, as every human being eventually does, they may experience guilt, shame, or discouragement. But when identity is rooted in deeper truths rather than perfect performance, individuals can acknowledge mistakes without allowing those mistakes to destroy their sense of purpose. They can learn, grow, and continue forward. This resilience becomes essential for long-term impact. Another challenge identity protects against is comparison. Modern culture encourages constant comparison between individuals. Social media platforms amplify this tendency by allowing people to display curated versions of their success, achievements, and lifestyles. When individuals compare their journey with others, they may begin questioning whether their own purpose is meaningful enough. Someone might think, why does their work seem more influential than mine? Why are they receiving recognition while my efforts remain unnoticed? Maybe I chose the wrong path. Comparison can quietly undermine purpose because it shifts attention away from personal calling and toward external competition. But when identity is secure, individuals are less vulnerable to this trap. They understand that purpose is not a race against others. It is a personal responsibility to faithfully fulfill the role entrusted to them. Each person's calling is unique, shaped by their experiences, abilities, and the needs they encounter in the world. Comparing callings often leads to unnecessary discouragement. Instead, individuals with a strong sense of identity focus on stewarding their own responsibilities well. They measure success not by outperforming others, but by faithfully fulfilling their purpose. Identity also protects individuals from another danger: approval addiction. Approval can be motivating in healthy ways. Encouragement from others can strengthen confidence and provide valuable feedback. However, when someone becomes dependent on constant approval, Their decisions may begin to revolve around pleasing others rather than fulfilling their calling. They may avoid difficult truths or challenging responsibilities because they fear criticism. Over time, this dependence can dilute purpose. Instead of serving what is right or meaningful, individuals may begin serving public opinion. A stable identity frees people from this trap. When someone understands their deeper purpose and identity, they can receive encouragement with gratitude while still remaining faithful to their convictions, even when others disagree. But developing this kind of identity requires reflection. It requires individuals to ask questions that go beyond career ambitions or personal dreams. They must consider, what values define who I am? What principles guide my decisions even when circumstances become difficult? What kind of person do I want to become? These questions shift focus from external success to internal formation, because purpose ultimately depends on character. Without integrity, influence can become dangerous. Without humility, leadership can become oppressive. Without compassion, service can become self-serving. Identity shapes character, and character shapes how purpose is lived out. Over time, individuals who develop strong character become capable of carrying greater responsibility. Their decisions are guided by principles rather than temporary emotions. Their work reflects consistency and trustworthiness, and others begin recognizing these qualities. People naturally trust leaders who demonstrate integrity. Communities respect individuals whose actions align with their values. This trust multiplies the impact of purpose. But even when identity is strong, the journey of purpose still leads toward one final realization. Because purpose, identity, sacrifice, discipline, and calling all point toward a larger question that every person must eventually confront. What is the ultimate reason my life exists at all? Answering that question brings the entire journey into focus. And understanding that deeper reason reveals the final truth about purpose that we must explore next. The ultimate truth about purpose. What if the greatest lie about purpose is the idea that your life exists primarily for you? Throughout this journey, we have examined many layers of the modern conversation about purpose. We began by challenging the popular belief that people must invent their own purpose. We explored how passion, while powerful, can sometimes lead individuals away from their true calling. We examined how ambition can distract people from meaningful responsibility, and how inner resistance often prevents them from stepping into deeper direction. We also saw that purpose rarely appears as a sudden revelation. Instead, it unfolds gradually through obedience. It demands sacrifice, requires discipline, and must be sustained by a stable sense of identity. But after considering all these elements, one final question remains: why does purpose exist at all? What is the ultimate reason human beings feel such a deep desire to live meaningful lives? Why do people long to believe that their existence matters? Why does success alone often fail to satisfy the human heart? These questions lead us to the deepest truth about purpose. The most dangerous lie about purpose is the belief that life exists primarily for self-fulfillment. This idea is deeply embedded in modern culture. People are constantly encouraged to build their lives around personal happiness, personal success, and personal freedom. The underlying message is simple. The goal of life is to maximize your own satisfaction. At first glance, this idea appears logical. If individuals have the freedom to pursue what they desire, then they should be able to create lives that make them happy. Yet experience repeatedly shows that self-centered purpose rarely produces lasting fulfillment. People may achieve everything they once believed would satisfy them: wealth, recognition, influence, and personal freedom, yet still feel a lingering sense of emptiness. This paradox has puzzled thinkers, philosophers, and spiritual leaders for centuries. Why does the pursuit of personal fulfillment often leave people feeling incomplete? The answer may lie in a simple but profound realization. Human beings were never designed to live only for themselves. Purpose becomes meaningful only when it connects a person's life to something larger than their individual desires. This larger reality can take many forms. For some, it appears through serving communities, strengthening families, or helping others overcome challenges. For others, it emerges through creating art, advancing knowledge, or protecting justice. In every case, purpose expands when individuals move beyond self-centered ambition and begin contributing to the well-being of others. Messages frequently emphasized by voices such as Philip Anthony Mitchell highlight this principle. True purpose is not about elevating oneself, it's about faithfully fulfilling the role one has been entrusted with in the larger story of life. This perspective transforms how people think about success. Success is no longer measured only by personal achievements or public recognition. Instead, success becomes the faithful stewardship of one's gifts, opportunities, and responsibilities. In other words, Purpose is less about what you gain and more about what you give. This shift can feel counterintuitive because modern culture often celebrates the opposite message. People are told to focus on building their personal brand, maximizing their influence, and securing their own future. Yet the most meaningful lives throughout history often followed a different pattern. They were lives dedicated to service, contribution, and sacrifice. Consider individuals who devoted themselves to helping others grow, protecting vulnerable communities, advancing justice, or sharing knowledge that benefits future generations. Their lives may not always have been easy. They faced challenges, criticism, and moments of discouragement. Yet their contributions created impact that extended far beyond their own lifetime. Purpose, when rooted in service, becomes generational. It shapes families, influences communities, and inspires future leaders. But embracing this deeper understanding of purpose requires a shift in perspective. Instead of asking only, "What do I want from life?" individuals begin asking a different question. What does life ask of me? This question reframes the entire journey. It suggests that purpose is not simply something individuals pursue for their own benefit. It is something they steward. Stewardship means recognizing that talents, opportunities, and experiences carry responsibility. A person with the ability to teach carries responsibility to share knowledge. Someone with leadership ability carries responsibility to guide others wisely. Individuals who possess resources or influence carry responsibility to use them for good. This perspective transforms everyday decisions. Work becomes more than a means of personal advancement. It becomes a platform for contribution. Relationships become more than sources of personal happiness. They become opportunities to support, encourage, and uplift others. Challenges become more than obstacles. They become opportunities to grow stronger and wiser. Purpose therefore shifts from being a personal project to being part of a larger mission. And when people begin living this way, something remarkable often happens. The fulfillment they once tried to chase begins to appear naturally. This is one of life's greatest paradoxes. Those who pursue purpose primarily for personal satisfaction often struggle to find lasting fulfillment. But those who pursue purpose in order to serve something greater than themselves frequently experience deep and lasting meaning. Why? Because their lives become connected to something enduring. They are no longer striving only for temporary rewards. They are participating in a story that extends beyond their individual existence. This realization brings the entire conversation about purpose full circle. Purpose is not discovered through endless self-analysis. It is not sustained by passion alone. It is not guaranteed by ambition or success. Instead, purpose grows when individuals faithfully live out the responsibilities entrusted to them, serving others, developing their character, and contributing to something greater than themselves. And this understanding reveals one final truth. Purpose is not about becoming someone extraordinary in the eyes of the world. It is about becoming faithful in the role you have been given. For some people, that role may involve leadership on a large stage. For others, it may involve quiet influence within families, communities, or workplaces. But in every case, the value of a life is measured not by visibility, but by faithfulness. Faithfulness to truth, faithfulness to responsibility, faithfulness to the calling placed before you. And when a person lives with that kind of purpose, their life begins to carry a quiet but powerful impact. Not because they chased greatness, but because they chose to live with meaning.